Hey guys, A Canadian Gamer here, and here you see this new video format I'm adopting. And I don't know if this is going to be permanent or this is going to be more of a temporary thing, but for the sake of this video, I thought this kind of format would be more appropriate as I go through all the press conferences and my overview of all the games that were revealed and all the big surprises and all that. But anyways, let's get into it with the first two press conferences. EA and Bethesda. Here you have a publisher that has a very long track record of dry and underwhelming press conferences, and at this point I've come to accept that, and I just watch them for the reveals and what games they got coming up. Obviously they're going to bore us to death with their continued EA Sports franchises, which no one could give a fuck less about, because personally at this point they're fucking lazy. Like, even if I was like a sports game enthusiast, like if I loved sports games as much as I loved video games and I like playing video games of sports, I would still not give a shit because there's no other competition. Because I assure you, before EA wiped out all their competition in the sports genre in games, like, they pretty much become lazy, and all those other competitors are way better. I can guarantee you that. And all the NHL and NFL games, just meh, I don't care. The shovelware. It's basically, sports games at this point are just games you buy for your next gen console or for a new system when nothing else is out. That's it. But even then, they didn't really test the tech. They just fucking rushed out the their sports releases for the next gen consoles when the PS4 and Xbox first came out. Anyway, enough about sports. There was Battlefield 1, which I'm very ecstatic about. We haven't seen a World War I shooter in a while. A AAA World War I shooter, I mean. And then there was Titanfall 2. Don't really have any strong feelings about it. It might be better. There was a story trailer. I watched it and watched the multiplayer gameplay, and I guess I'm glad to say that at least it now has a story, because the first Titanfall had very little of a story. And yeah, very, very little. And yeah, just a very underwhelming press conference overall. And all I'm really excited for is BF1. That's it. That's really all I'm excited for. Anyway, moving on. Bethesda's press conference really did surprise me, but not really in a good way, because their press conference this year didn't really measure up with their press conference last year, because all they had to reveal was a game they already revealed last year, just showing a bit more gameplay, which was Dishonored 2, which is interesting. I did like the first Dishonored, but the story was kind of meh for me. Gameplay is what stole the show. The gameplay was amazing, and they showed that even more. And they really didn't have much else to show, but they also had they really didn't have much else to show in that conference. And you can really see that because they spent a lot of time with Dishonored 2. Not only with the gameplay trailer, but with actual gameplay and playing with mechanics and all that. Then there was a reveal of a teaser called Prey. And no, don't confuse that with a completely different Prey. That one game, Prey 2, that everyone was excited for at one point, like way back in 2011. Yeah, that game's kind of still in limbo or dead for all I know. I don't know. This is a completely different Prey. And from the teaser, it's somewhat interesting. It just starts out with a guy. From what I've heard, I believe you play as a guy who goes through these tests. He's like a test subject and goes through these tests, and he wakes up every morning, he goes through his routine, he goes in the mirror, looks at his eye, and gets redder and redder. And well, like, as I tried to explain, there's not really much I can do. I guess on a space station, like, there's some kind of alien or something, I don't know. Like, it is kind of intriguing. I mean, it looks interesting, but You still know very little about it. Everything. Then there was the return of Quake, which might be something I check out because I never really played the Quake games, but I'm sure I played a lot of games that lived up to Quake. Like, I know that Quake is a very fast-paced shooter, and there's some shooters I can think of that are fast-paced like Quake. Other than that, all you got was them talking about DLC for Fallout 4 and Doom, and a Skyrim remaster, which I could care less about. It would be even more pointless if they didn't implement mods on the Skyrim remaster like they were doing with Fallout 4. If they didn't do that, that would have been really fucking stupid. But thank God they did implement mods, so at least console gamers aren't left out on mods. So yeah, overall, I kind of feel like Bethesda didn't really need to have a press conference this year. Last year, they had a lot to show. This year, they didn't. And they knew that, and they went ahead anyways. Okay, like, I mean, I'm sure that was probably a waste of money, and a lot of people are probably thinking, yeah, that was a pretty underwhelming press conference, so what was the fucking point? Obviously, the whole point is to drive up hype, I guess, but that's what E3 is for. But anyways, pointless press conference, waste of money on Bethesda's part. But anyways, let's move on to the two big publishers that have the two main consoles. Okay, let's start off with Sony. Their press conference really stood out because they had a fucking orchestra, for one, which is cool, which was interesting. And the first reveal they made was God of War, which is for some reason not called God of War 4. Makes it seem like it's a fucking reboot when it's not, when it's clearly a sequel from looking at the gameplay. You see Kratos in the gameplay. He's rocking a beard, a lumberjack beard, and you see him going hunting with his son. It's kind of pretty clear that's his son. And the one biggest question is how the fuck he's even still alive, especially to those of you who knows what happens to him at the end of God of War 3. Not to spoil anything. Then there was Days Gone, which didn't really interest me. The Last Guardian looks pretty interesting. I never played Ico. I played a little bit of Shadow of the Colossus, but it was when I was a kid. I only played a demo of it, and I found the game very intimidating. Yeah, it seemed pretty interesting. Detroit Becomes Human, which is another David Cage game, the same guy who did Beyond Two Souls, Heavy Rain, and Fahrenheit, or Indigo Prophecy as it's known here. I don't know, it's just, I feel like in his stories, the characters, he takes it way too seriously, the tone and all that, because I wish he was more self-aware about his games, because a lot of his games tend to be very over the top, and I tend to play the games for a good laugh now. Like, it's really hard to take their plots seriously. I would always they're really funny for Let's Players, especially. You can watch fucking Adam's channel from YMS, his gaming channel, and he fucking has the most hilarious playthrough of Heavy Rain and Beyond. They're hilarious. I feel like Detroit Becomes Human is gonna be just as hilarious. And yeah, I'd say it's gonna be. I think I can think of David Cage as one of those, like, are equivalent to those movie directors who make movies that are so bad they're good. I mean, they're not bad, it's just, I do like their gameplay, how in every level, with every choice you make, you'll see scenarios completely different, and you can miss complete sections depending on your choices, which is the one interesting thing. But their plots take themselves too seriously, the writing just isn't really there. But anyways, let's move on to Resident Evil 7. This was a big surprise. It revealed a PT-like demo, which you can download now on the PSN. I haven't played it yet. And it's trying to go in the horror, go back to survival horror from the looks of it, but I kind of feel like it's a little late for that. Like, the Resident Evil continuity is batshit insane at this point, and Silent Hill had a lot more hope, because at least the story there wasn't as crazy. And there was a lot more horror to it, because I don't really remember Resident Evil being all that scary. What really made it scary was the game mechanics, the tension of the tension of it all, how you're very weak. But a lot of it, what Silent Hill got was raw spooks and its story, and like your sanity and all that. And PT, when looking at the demo compared to PT, the demo was, from what I've heard, made by one of the same guys who made PT, and it's, I don't know, I don't really think it measures up. It really doesn't. But I guess it seems interesting where they might go with it. Like, it's first person, but it's obviously not going to be representative of the full game like PT was. There was also a Call of Duty Infinite Warfare reveal. Don't care, and I'm pretty sure you didn't. Crash Bandicoot Remastered, woo, fun, and they're remastered. Skylanders, don't care. Lego Star Wars Force Awakens, yep, another fucking Star Wars Lego game. Anyways, but then there was Death Stranding, which was a game revealed by Kojima, has the most epic intro ever. He pretty much goes on the stage and says,
"I'm back." Thank you.
And from the looks of the trailer of Death Stranding, we get the reveal of Norman Reedus. Well, it was pretty obvious Norman Reedus was in the trailer from the poster I showed you earlier, but obviously there's not really much to make of it yet, but what would you expect? It's Kojima. He, ever since for the release of MGS5, you really saw he really knows how to make good trailers. He really does. And personally, I did kind of snicker at seeing Norman Reedus in there. It's like, yeah, it's just, yeah. I guess it's nice to see him there. Like, I mean, I guess he was a little bummed out that he didn't get to play his own role in a video game after Silent Hills got canceled. And I guess when Kojima started working on his own project, he's like, yeah, you come in and join on my project on Death Stranding too. That's cool. And looking at the trailer, it's a little weird, but that's what you can expect from Kojima. But yeah, I'm actually really excited to see what else to see from this game. I'm curious of what route this game will take. Will it be a stealth game like MGS, or will it be something completely different? Anyways, that's the last of the Sony press conference. Let's move on to Microsoft. I know a lot of you out there may not agree with me on this, but this year Microsoft had the best press conference, just like they did last year, because ever since 2013 they've really made a big turnaround with the Xbox One. They really moved away from that horrible press conference from, like, well, it wasn't a press conference, it was the reveal of the Xbox One, which centered around fucking television and made everyone fucking say,
"Where are you going? Where are you going?" It's like seeing somebody wander off into the fucking forest.
The first game they revealed at their press conference was Gears of War 4. And personally, I have a little mixed feelings on it. I have the same level of nostalgia for the Gears of War games as I do with the Halo games, but as the years goes on, these old Xbox titles, Gears of War and Halo, they start to wane and wane the more they continue. It really shows, because I feel like the more they go on, the more irrelevant they're going to become, just like how irrelevant Call of Duty is going to become, because a lot of the Activision franchises crash and die pretty hard, much like Tony Hawk and the Guitar Hero games. And what has me so concerned about Gears of War 4 is the story. The multiplayer, that's probably what I'm going to be excited about. Next gen Gears of War game on an Xbox. Fuck yeah, I'm going to love that. But in terms of story, I kind of felt like it should have ended right there in Gears of War 3. Gears of War 3 was the epitome of the franchise. Gears of War 2 was awesome. Campaign upped it. The campaign Gears of War 3 is okay, I guess. It may not be as good as I remember, but I may play it again in the future. What also concerns me is it's not being developed by Epic Games. It's being developed by 2 developers. I don't know the other one. The name slipped my mind, but it's being made by the same guys who's made Brink. And those of you who watched my review of Brink may understand my feelings about Brink and why I may be so concerned. And so yeah, campaign, not so sure. Multiplayer, excited for. Final Fantasy 15, pretty good gameplay reveal, but I'm finding very, 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 very hard for it to get into. Like, it's too anime. It really is. Like, the fucking hair they have, the generic character archetypes, the smart guy, the strong guy, the comic relief guy, and the main character whose personality is just a hollowed out tree stump. And yeah, especially the main character's voice, it really doesn't match with the model. I've said that over and over when I was playing it with my girlfriend, and we just laugh at it. And it's just, I like the gameplay. It's just, that's pretty much what I said about all the Final Fantasy games. Like with Final Fantasy 13 in particular, I like the gameplay in that, but the story was just god awful. I mean, I've heard Final Fantasy fans talk about the best Final Fantasy game being Final Fantasy 6. I played Final Fantasy 5, got a little far, just couldn't really get into it. I guess turn-based isn't really for me. I do plan on buying it eventually. It's just the story, I'm probably not going to take it as seriously. I'm probably just going to laugh at it. So I guess I'm somewhat excited. But what really surprised me in Microsoft press conference this year was We Happy Few. And it's really interesting game. It's made by the same guy, the same development team that made Contrast, I believe. I believe it was that one of the first titles that came out on the next gen systems, and I believe you could download for free, like on PS4 at the time. And We Happy Few takes place in this Orwellian future where everyone's hopped up on drugs called joy, because you have to take it. Everyone's happy and living in this carefree world, and you gotta take your joy unless you're gonna be called a downer. And the cops will be after you and all that. It's really, it really made me snicker. Oh, red alert, downer. Really interesting game. And what really surprised me, this was actually a game in beta on PC, and many Let's Players has played it. And yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised I've only first heard of it now. Or maybe I've actually probably heard of it years ago and probably forgotten about it, but the gameplay they show really surprised me, and I'm really excited for it. Gwent the Witcher card game. This is a surprise. Having Gwent being its own dedicated game may be a good thing, because Gwent in Witcher 3, while it was fun to play, but in a competitive setting, I don't think it would really work. Like, I mean, once you collect a lot of cards, a lot of power cards, it really became really easy, no matter how high the difficulty was. I mean, sure, like in the beginning, when you had a default deck, it was a fair game, but it actually required skill. But once you like acquired a lot of power cards, it became a power trip. It's just too easy. So obviously you're going to play with other players from the looks of it, which is fun, and hopefully they'll work out the kinks for the game for it to be just for it being a dedicated game. Dead Rising 4. Overall, my feelings on the Dead Rising franchise have been mixed, because the overall timer in all the games, the timer in those games, they've really irked me. I mean, you're in this sandbox world, and like most sandbox games, they encourage exploration. A timer destroys all that. Now I know some of you may point out that in Dead Rising 3 they removed it, and probably are going to remove it in Dead Rising 4, and it's probably now optional, but yeah, that's a good thing. And if the timer isn't there, then I'll play it. And I do like the return of Frank West and the photography mechanic, which was the one unique thing about the first Dead Rising. I do like the Dead Rising games. It's just certain things really irk me, and certain design choices just really, ugh, yeah. And the last one was Halo Wars 2, and never really played the first Halo Wars. I know that it wasn't developed by Bungie, and it was developed by a certain development team. I believe they're known for making strategy games, and I don't think it's made by that same development team that made Halo Wars. I believe it's a completely different development team, and don't really have much thoughts on it, but I guess if you're into strategy, I guess that's gonna be your thing. And now I saved the worst press conference of the year for last. Ubisoft. And guaranteed, just like last year, this press conference is gonna be seen in the cringe compilation, in the E3 cringe compilation, mostly because Aisha Tyler. You probably remember her from last year, who talked to that one guy who dressed up like that one EC character from AC Syndicate, and who talked about fucking dank memes or some shit. It's cringy as fuck. I mean, it's the one thing that really irks me about E3 is these fucking really shitty jokes, them trying to be funny. And speaking of being funny, the only people that were funny at that press conference was Matt Stone and Trey Parker from South Park, and they revealed gameplay of South Park: The Fractured Butthole. It's not as spelled as it sounds, and instead of in Stick of Truth, it was more of a parody of fantasy games. This is more about superheroes, and the joke about the saturation of the superhero genre. And yeah, it looks like a really hilarious South Park game, and I played Stick of Truth, and it was fucking hilarious, and I love South Park, and that's probably the one good game that I'm really interested in. But the only other game that really got my attention, it's just those two games. It's just South Park and Watch Dogs 2. And mostly with Watch Dogs 2, I'm mostly curious how the game's going to turn out. I looked at the gameplay. It looks like a much better Watch Dogs. I'm surprised they didn't call it Watch Dogs 2.0. Like, that's what they say about a lot of sequels. Like, I mean, like, they kind of say put a 2.0 as sequel as if it's a bad thing because it just improves gameplay. Personally, it would have been appropriate if they call it 2.0 because it's fucking Hacker. Be super appropriate. And people seem to have a problem with the protagonist. I think he might be better, but who knows? He might just be like a fucking like a token black character. It's the one thing about characters, they always have special identities. They make a big deal about race and about their identity, like, we're so progressive, and okay, you're progressive, okay, what's so interesting about the character? Is there anything interesting about the character besides the race? That's the one big question. Also, the one big question I have about Watch Dogs 2 is your motivation. Now, your motivation in the first Watch Dogs, spoilers, Aiden Pierce, he goes after mob bosses who, when mob bosses put a hit on him, crashed his car, niece died, and okay, revenge story. Simple revenge story. Your motivation here, you're part of Anonymous, or DedSec as they like to call themselves, and I guess you're supposed to topple the government or what, I don't fucking know. I really don't. And the trailer didn't impress me. I mean, the only trailer I liked was the Marcus trailer because the fucking song in that trailer, mostly because the song, yeah, it's a pretty fucking awesome song, but other than that, yeah. Gameplay is what's interesting me. Story, I don't fucking know where it's at. I really don't. And yeah, that's my overall thoughts of E3. And if you're wondering why I ignored Nintendo, it's because personally I see Nintendo as irrelevant because they're not going to change their ways if they're not really trying. They're saying it's not about the tech, it's all about the games. Well, yeah, sure. At the end of the day, it's all about the games. It doesn't matter how good graphics are or how good your hardware is, it's all about the games. But you need a proper console to have third-party hardware. You don't need to be just as powerful as Xbox and PS4. It just needs to be around the same range. And plus, you don't need to make stupid choices like they did with the GameCube and the N64 or the fucking Wii. Like with the Wii, they just made an SD console with a motion control gimmick. GameCube, they used a completely different format that couldn't hold as much space as normal CDs. And with N64, they stuck with cartridges, which were more expensive to manufacture. And instead of doing what Sony was doing with the first PlayStation, they moved to CDs. They were easy to manufacture and hold a lot more space. You see what I mean? They don't have forward thinking. They don't. They don't know how to change their ways. They think all they need is their title. That's it. And plus, personally, if they actually changed their ways and had a proper console, had third-party support, and got back the hardcore gamers and earned the trust of hardcore gamers and gave them the games they want and their first-party titles, they'd probably be making more money than Microsoft and Sony, because they would not only own the hardcore market, they would own the casual market. And plus, Nintendo's a household name, because any like gamers like me and you, we probably met people who were non-gamers and still call them Nintendo games, like our parents, okay? So, yeah, Nintendo's fucking up, and I'm not going to bother with Nintendo. I don't care what they're doing. They're just cashing in on nostalgia. That's all they're doing. Anyways, that was my overall thoughts of E3. That was my overview. Anyways, I'm the A Canadian Gamer, and I'll see you next time.